Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Today, we're going to be discussing the topic of food waste and why we should become more aware of our own habits, at least at home, that it's making waste happen. Because, of course, food is edible until it goes bad. This is something to remember on a daily basis. You might think, well, of course, I know that already. Well, may I just ask then, why are we letting food go to waste to begin with then? So once again, just go over what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about food waste and the mistakes that we make along the way, and obviously find solutions to decrease the amount of waste that we create with food, just being more aware the process of it, and also just to keep our minds busy. I'll be putting side by side pictures of maybe I just trying to see what you guys tend to choose on these types of situations. Now, how many of us tend to open our fridges and see the leftovers that are in there and think, you know what, maybe I'm just going to go ahead and toss it because I'm not going to get to it anytime soon, so might as well just throw it away before it goes bad. Well, now imagine all of America doing that same exact thing, opening the fridge and tossing out any leftovers that they see. According to Feeding America, around 38% of food goes to waste here, and that's not even accounting for the percentage of food waste that is created just by the food industry itself. So it really kind of like makes us think, what habits do we have that at least in our own households we're creating waste. This is something that we have control over in our own households. We can't control what the food industry does. So let's start from an area that we can make a change in. Now look at these two images. Just want to see, raise a hands. How do you tend to keep your fridge? Do you tend to keep your fridge stocked, having everything that you need, even if you might not even need it, like the picture on the right side? See all the pretty fruits, vegetables, the milk. The fridge looks pretty full. Or do you tend to have your fridge like the picture on the left? Doesn't have everything, but maybe just the necessities to get you by. So let's keep your answer in mind while we discuss what causes food waste. One mistake that we tend to do as consumers, we tend to overbuy when we go to the groceries. You might have your list, and maybe you grab what you need on your list, but you end up purchasing other items that you might not even use throughout that week. It's gonna end up going bad in your fridge. So what happens? It expires, it gets mold, so you have to end up tossing it. So if you're thinking, maybe just thinking about the amount of food that you're throwing away from your stocked fridge, is it enough to make you think about what we're doing wrong? Think about the money that we're also tossing with it, because it costs money to buy these foods, but we're tossing it like if it didn't really cost us anything. Well, according to Rowan's 2024 article of the Food Waste Challenge, around the amount of food waste that's created accounts to almost $1 trillion. So that's the amount that it's going up to. Imagine the amount of money we're throwing away with every food that we're tossing because it went bad. Another thing that tends to cause food waste is these confusing labels. As you can see, you could just grab a can from your pantry, just looking at maybe the bread that's on your table. It tends to say used by, best before. So we would assume as consumers that maybe the manufacturers know when the food is fresh. So maybe the date that we see on the labels, or that we consider as expiration date labels, probably means we should toss it by that day. Well, thankfully, the FDA back in 2019, although it's not law or required, they recommended that manufacturers stick to at least one or two labels. The recommended one being best if used before. It doesn't tell you that it expires by that certain day. It just lets the consumer know that you're eating. It's recommended to eat the food at this time, throughout this time until this date, because it's at its freshest. doesn't mean that it's gone bad. Doesn't mean you have to toss it once it's past the date that you see on the label. It just means probably won't be as fresh. Also, as you see over here in this picture, it's like when we go into the supermarket, which date are you most likely to get? The one that says June 20th or the one that says June 27th? We're probably going to choose the product that has the most shelf life, that's going to last longer in our fridge, just in case we don't get to finish it before the date that's on there. But even then, just the date that's on the jug right there, what does it mean? Does it mean it goes bad by June 27th? Because it doesn't even say used by or best before. It just gives you a date. Which once again just goes to show how confusing these food labels tend to be and causes us to just end up tossing probably good food. Now, in order to decrease food waste, you should really consider, well, let's buy what you will use. Pretty obvious once again, but are we actually buying what we will use? Because if you were, once again, food will not be going to waste in our own fridges. So one thing to just consider is just being really aware of the choices that we're making. Because just one wrong move, maybe just starting the process incorrectly, can cause us to create food waste in our own homes. One thing, obviously, a lot of us tend to do is we plan our grocery shopping. We either have a list, we keep track of what's in our fridge and our pantry, which is really important to keep in mind what you already have in your household. That way you don't accidentally purchase something you already have. Because then once again, you're going to have too much of that one thing at home, and it's most likely going to end up going bad. And now when I say being mindful, it's not only, once again, being aware of what you already have in your homes, but also just how you tend to choose the products. That's how many of us tend to go to grab our apples, we look at it, we inspect them, we try to get the most perfect ones. The shiny, the pretty, the bright red, no bruises, no scratches on them. Well, that's one start to waste. Because to start off, many farmers, the waste starts at the farmer's area. They end up tossing or just getting rid of their harvest that doesn't look perfect for consumption because they already have an idea that the consumers aren't going to choose that food because it's not perfect in shape and color and size. So next time you go into the supermarket and you see that little bruised apple, why aren't you getting it? Because not that it's bad, it's still good, so why aren't we purchasing it? Also, just like we have different options as well to purchase these things. If you're more aware and do want to make a change and want to create less waste, there is options like Misfit Market. You can search this up online. You can see on this image over here on the top right on the screen. There's other websites as well that do the same thing. These websites, they buy the produce from farmers, the imperfect ones, not the right shape, not the right color, but they're still good for consumption. They're not expired, they're not moldy. You could eat these. These are perfectly well produce that you could consume at a cheaper price as well for that same reason that they're just imperfect. Well, honestly, we could end food waste, maybe not 100% because once again, there's outside factors that we can't control. But at least in our own homes, we could decrease the amount of waste that we create. Just keep in mind, like, how are you shopping when you tend to buy foods? How are you choosing it? Are you looking at your options? One thing which I didn't really mention earlier was also the option of composting. It's a little bit of a tough process to understand and getting the right items into the bins, but you could go into the Chicago City website and just search up food scrap drop-offs. And these are just composting locations. They have around 20 locations in the city of Chicago. You can see which is more convenient for you to do and drop off any food waste that you have. There they give you like a list of foods that can be composted. It's kind of like certain specific items, which once again is why I say is we can't 100% end food waste, but we could decrease it. Guys, have any questions for me? I'll gladly answer them throughout this period. Okay, well, thank you everyone for giving me your time and attention. I really do appreciate it. And once again, be mindful of how you're shopping, consuming to decrease food waste.